You just replied to something they said. Except they didn't say anything. They're not even here. You're standing at the kitchen sink, hands in warm water, halfway through a conversation with somebody who left the room 40 minutes ago. You already thought of the perfect thing to say back. It's just you're saying it now, not then, and not out loud. And by the time the sink is empty, you've probably had 3 of these conversations already today. People think quiet people don't talk much? That's the visible part. The invisible part is that you don't stop talking. You just move the conversation somewhere nobody else can hear it. The room in your head has better acoustics than the room you're standing in. It always did. This one's about that room, why it grew so loud. What starts happening when it becomes the only place you're actually honest? And why the danger isn't the room itself, it's something quieter than that. There's a version of you that talks all day. Fluently. Confidently. Never stumbles, never says the wrong thing. It just doesn't happen where anyone can see. Psychologists have names for these different modes of internal talk. There's inner speech, the running commentary you use to think and plan. There's post-event processing, going back over a conversation you already had, editing what you should have said. And there's anticipatory rehearsal, running through a conversation you haven't had yet. Sometimes one you'll never have. Most people do a little of all 3. If you're the person this video is about, you do a lot of all 3. Half your day is inner speech deciding what matters. Half your evenings are post-event processing what you should have said at lunch. Half your commute tomorrow is anticipatory rehearsal for a meeting that may not even go the way you're preparing for. Your mouth being quiet isn't silence, it's just the outside of it. On the inside, someone is always talking. Sometimes to a coworker who annoyed you last Thursday. Sometimes to a version of your parents from 12 years ago. Sometimes to no one specific, just an audience of one. Sitting in the front row of your head, listening, while you finally get to say the sentence exactly right. You know the way you sound in your head when you're arguing with somebody who's already gone home. Steady. On the beat, every point lands exactly where you meant it to land. Nobody talks over you. Nobody misses your inflection. That's what conversation is like when there's no risk in it. In your head, the words don't cost you anything. You can try them, rearrange them. Say them a second time with a better ending. You can be funnier there than you'll ever be at an actual dinner table, because at an actual dinner table, funny has a shelf life of about 2 seconds. Miss it and it's gone. In your head, the joke can wait. So the mouth stays closed, and the room in your head fills up with everything you meant to say, everything you should have said, everything you would say if the outside room were a little more patient. And somewhere along the way, the 2 rooms start to feel very different. One is where you live. The other is where you visit. And the visits keep getting longer. Nobody teaches you to do this. You picked it up somewhere. Maybe when you were young and answered too quickly, and somebody laughed. Maybe when you said something honest and it made the room go quiet in the wrong way. Maybe the outside version of you started losing arguments, and the inside version started winning them. And one of them felt worth practicing. Your brain figures out fast that spoken words come with consequences and thought words don't. So some part of you starts rutting traffic. The important thoughts, the ones with feelings under them, get pulled aside for review. The small talk gets waved through. But the review takes time. And the outside conversation doesn't wait. So the thoughts that matter most sit in the queue, get their edits, get their softer opener, get their tighter ending, and by the time they're ready, the topic has changed and there's no clean way to bring them in. So they stay. They go back in the room. They join the audience. But here's the part nobody tells you. Rooms fill up. And the danger isn't that you talk to yourself. Most people do that in some form. The danger is quieter than that. The danger is that after enough years of it, your brain starts treating imagined conversations as if they were real ones. You feel the resolution of the fight, even though the fight never happened. You feel the closure of the apology, even though nobody said it out loud. You feel like you already handled it, because inside you did. and the outside version of the relationship gets to stay exactly the way it was. You walk around thinking a chapter has ended, when the other person didn't even know a chapter was open. The peace you feel isn't shared. It's yours alone in a room only you were ever standing in. That's the shift most people don't notice while it's happening. Not just quiet on the outside. Slowly living most of your real life on the inside. You've had entire fights with people who don't know they were in them. You've had entire reconciliations with people who think you're still angry. There's a version of your mother who has heard every honest thing you've never told her. A version of your closest friend who has been told what actually hurt you. A version of your partner who knows why you've been quiet the last 2 weeks. They just don't know they know. And on the outside, nothing has moved. They're still reacting to the silent version of you. You're still reacting to the imagined version of them. Two people can slowly grow apart because one relationship is happening in the room, and the other is happening in reality, and neither person can figure out why the distance keeps widening. The people closest to you can feel that something has shifted, but they can't name it. Because from where they're standing, nothing did. You had the whole argument. You had the whole apology. They just weren't in the version where it happened. Meanwhile, you're tired. You're tired the way people get tired when they've been running a second shift nobody else can see. You wake up already halfway into a conversation you started at 3 in the morning. You come home from work and the mouth is done, but the room isn't. That's not laziness. That's not something wrong with you. That's what happens when the only place your real voice gets used is a place with no doors. And here's the strange part. That room isn't a defect. For some people, it's where understanding actually happens. It's where you think in full paragraphs instead of sound bites. Where you write the letter you'd never sent. Where you feel through the exact shape of what somebody did to you, until you know which part hurt and which part didn't. You react slower on the outside because you're processing deeper on the inside. You show up to the funeral without crying, and cry 3 weeks later at a stoplight. Because that's when the shape of it finally arrives. You forgive somebody a year after they hurt you, in a car alone, because that's how long it took to sort the anger from the hurt, from the disappointment. That's not a small thing. That's a way of being alive. The problem isn't that the room exists. The problem is that so much of you is only reachable through it. And most of the people you love have never been given the key. Not because you don't trust them. Because you didn't know how to open the door in the middle of a fast conversation. Because saying it out loud always felt like translating a poem into a language that doesn't have quite the right words for it. So maybe the shift isn't about talking more. It's about learning that a small percentage of what happens in the room deserves to leave it. Not the polished version. Not the one you've rehearsed 16 times until it sounds like something somebody else wrote. The rougher one. The one you would have said if you trusted that the person listening could handle it landing imperfectly. The imagined version of any conversation is always going to be better than the real one. Of course it is. It's had all night to get itself right. But it has also already agreed with you. It always will. Nothing outside of you moves until something moves outside of you. What if you let one thing out this week that would normally stay in the room? Not everything. One thing. A small honest sentence to somebody who's earned it. See how it lands. See if the outside can hold a little more of you than you thought it could. You're not quiet. You're just talking somewhere most people can't hear you. And there's nothing wrong with a life that mostly happens on the inside, every once in a while. Though, let the outside in on a piece of it. Some of you already know exactly which sentence I mean. The one that's been sitting in that room for years, waiting for a door you sometimes forget it has. You don't have to open it wide, just enough to let one true thing through.